In Australia's bicentennial year, Rockhampton was host to Beef 88, an exciting week of activities to celebrate the Australian beef industry. A very busy program from the 9th to the 14th of May included property tours, conference sessions, cattle shows and sales, exhibitions, displays and social activities. Never before has Rockhampton seen such a celebration, which brought both town and country folk together. The week began with bus tours to several properties in the Rockhampton area. The first property visited involved a working cattle dog demonstration. Community involvement from schools and the general public was a highlight.
These cattle that I'm working here today, these steers have been worked with the dog before, but when you put new dogs with stock, they usually test those dogs out. And your dog's got some steadily that stay in that position.
Those present could not help but feel that this was the beginning of a week that would exceed everyone's expectations. Meanwhile, back at the Rockhampton Showgrounds, stud cattle exhibitors were making all the final preparations for a one-day show that was to be the biggest this country had ever seen. Tuesday morning, the City Mall was the location for a barbecue breakfast. A special Beef 88 sausage had been prepared, which proved very popular. A variety of activities entertained the large crowd which had gathered for this unique occasion.
The City Mayor will receive a representative of Rockhampton's own cattle breed in the City Square.
The highlight of the morning was when a Belmont red steer was led through the mall and presented to a representative of Rockhampton City Council.
Sir, I have been instructed to request permission to have a representative of Rockhampton's own breed, the Belmont Red, to loiter in the heart of your city for a period of 1 week.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey. On behalf of the Rockhampton City Council, I'm certainly very proud to come along here today and accept this honorary membership of the Australian African Belmont Red.
The large gathering then moved to the magnificent Pilbeam Theatre for the Beef 88 International Conference, with the theme Working Together for a Better Tomorrow. Following registrations and morning tea in the theatre's car park, the conference began with the singing of a hymn.
Welcome. This is a time of great pride and humility as I welcome you all to Beef 88 here in Rockhampton for the Australian beef industry's celebration of the bicentenary year. To every one of you, I say thank you for coming. I hope you enjoy your stay. I hope you enjoy what we have to offer. And welcome to Beef 88.
After the official welcome from Chairman of Beef 88, Mr Ken Coombe, the Minister for Primary Industries, Mr John Kerrin, officially opened Beef 88.
The theme you've chosen for this week is indeed challenging, working together for a better tomorrow. If I could have a few political jibes, I think it's a very popular theme here in Queensland. I saw at the weekend that the left and right wings, the Labor Party got together, down about the Libs and the Nats, or the CU and the UGA, or Joe and the Premier and Russ, Fitzgerald and the rest, but you know, the elements are there. Ladies and gentlemen, the beef industry has come a long way from a fledgling herd of 2 bulls and 5 cows, which arrived with the first fleet 200 years ago. The Australian cattle industry now ranks alongside the sheep and wheat industries as one of the principal agricultural activities in Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, with every congratulations to the organising committee, it gives me much pleasure in declaring Beef 88 officially open. I thank you.
To propose a vote of thanks to Mr Kerrin, we have Sir Graham McCanley. I think Graham needs no introduction at all to the Central Queensland audience. On behalf of people present and the Beef 88 committee, I'd like to thank John Kerrin very sincerely for making his time available this morning. And I understand that great inconvenience. I also understand he's away AWL, and it's away World Hawk season, I'm sure it's right enough, but he has to return fairly quickly, so I'll be brief. But I thank the Minister very much for being here for opening conference, for what he has done, helping return that confidence to the industry. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to carry this vote of thanks by acclamation.
Thank you very much. I think I understand you, but if there's anyone out there that understands the miners' federations, the coal industry, or the politics of uranium, you know my address.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome please, Mr. Ian McLaughlin.
I was asked by Morris Binstead, I think it was, about 2.5 years ago to come to this conference. He threatened me with dire results if I didn't come. The idea that people should come along and hold their hands out anymore has to be just thrown out the window. It doesn't work, and it doesn't work for long. In any case, it might work for temporarily, but it doesn't work for long. And for those people who come along and tell us that the NFF should do this, or the Government Union or the UGA should do that, and haven't done anything for themselves, I think the best thing to do is to tell them home and tell them to get home and pull their fingers out and do something useful. The best thing we can tell everybody to do is to get out and do something themselves.
Chairman, ladies and gentlemen.
Life in the 1990s was the topic to be addressed by Mr Richard Clark, Chief Economist from Shell Australia Limited.
I was asked not to speak about the beef industry, and that indeed is fortunate for me since I know very little about it, next to nothing in fact. But I do believe that the 4 questions that I've raised, which to recap them were: how will the world and Australia correct the current economic imbalances? What is the outlook for oil and alternative energy sources? And what will be the effects of Australia's ageing population structure? And what will be the nature and consequences of technological change? Are issues which are worth considering by anyone who's making decisions with long-term implications. I imagine that's virtually everybody in this room. Lunch, which will be served at the marquee where morning tea was, is going to be beef shortcuts lunch. I'll draw this session to a close and ask you all to be in your seats so that the session can reconvene at 2 o'clock sharp. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to introduce the Chairman of the Australian Livestock Corporation, Mr. Dick Austin. Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen.
The changes in the Australian beef industry in the next 30 years are undoubtedly going to be as dramatic, specific and as revolutionary as they were in the last 30 years. Point 2, Australia's dependence on export markets will increase rather than decrease. The future has to be good for our industry. Our standards are second to none, our productivity is high, our determination is good, our resources are vast. So let's not leave this conference without perhaps sounding, if you may excuse the Ian McLaughlin type joke, let's sounding bullish about this whole deal.
It's now my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. White here.
The Policy Council, which was formed, has been doing some good work for us. It involves right across the industry. All the groups are brought together to form policy. The only question mark is how broad is their charter? And that's created a few problems, but as far as I'm concerned, they're there to handle problems that the single industry organisations can't solve. There's a lot of things to be hopeful for. There's a lot of signs to watch in international trade in terms of reduction in tariffs and freer trade that are going to affect your pocket to the better. And I rejoice in watching every one of them.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to introduce to you the organisers of the Beef 88 Committee. That these people have been to Vietnam and back. Because trying to put something like this together is bloody painful, and these people are really the walking wounded. And I think we should give them a round of applause because they survived.
Following a tribute to the organising committee of Beef 88, it was time for the spectacular opening ceremony to begin.
They brought with them the goods and stores the colony would need, the implements to clear and build, to plough and plant new seed. But the most important cargo to set foot on those sands were the cattle, to build mighty herds that soon would grace this land.
Farewell to all England forever. Farewell to my uncles as well. Farewell to singing to a liar, singing to a liar.
Song and verse recount their deeds for all the world to hear. And when we return to the Arkansas station, we hope you'll come by there and pay us a call.
So pass the dinner and boys, come there, my butt's down there, what a night we'll make the help of every Overlander.
So now, it's 1988, our bicentennial year. And from every corner of this globe, a wealth of breeds is here.
The president of the National Cattlemen's Association in the United States of America, Mr. Dale Humphreys, was the first speaker after the opening ceremony.
We we had the opportunity to break for tea, because you sure don't want to follow a group of children, especially as talented one as that was. And, you know, I became proud to be an Australian there during that program myself. We need to learn how to merchandise. The poultry, the egg people learned, and I've forgotten which way it was, but either if they stacked the cartons this way or stacked them this way, they could sell a lot more eggs. Now, it seems ridiculous, but we haven't done any research on how much counter space we ought to have, or where you put the meat in the counter, or how it's displayed. We have no idea how much beef we can really sell in the United States or in Australia. We've got an awful lot of work to need to do there.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to introduce Janine Walker.
Australia's economic future depends on the capacity of the nation's major economic players to work together to achieve our common goals of prosperity, an adequate standard of living and an opportunity for all. You will find a trade union movement that is mindful of your needs, that is not always prepared to meet them, but that perhaps will be more assured of your goodwill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and ladies and gentlemen. By its very nature, summing up paper comes last, and you are faced with the situation of keeping up to talks. Obviously, you've got to listen to them very intently, and that's the social function coming a little later. So I'm going to be brief, and I hope that I can give you a few take-home messages from this particular conference.
Thank you, Dr. Ennis, for the excellent summation of the day's proceedings. I'm sure you'll agree, ladies and gentlemen, it was very professionally handled.
The summation by Mr. Peter Innes was followed by a vote of thanks from Mr. Bruce Campbell.
Ladies and gentlemen, today and for the coming 4 days, Beef 88 will place our industry on the launching pad for its 3rd century of development. It is a wonderful way to do it, done with great success. I certainly congratulate Ken and his committee, and on behalf of you all, I thank sincerely the speakers who have presented themselves and their subject so thoroughly today. I do ask that you join with me in acclamation, a vote of thanks.
At the conclusion of the conference, a civic reception, hosted by Rockhampton Mayor Alderman Jim Webber and Alderman of the City Council, was held outside the Pilbeam Theatre.
From the city itself, we'd just like to say welcome to the beef capital of Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attendance. I'd like to just commend those who are involved in the committee. And I'm not going to mention any names in particular, because as sure as I do, I'll forget somebody.
On Wednesday morning, stud cattle exhibitors had been up before dawn, making all the final preparations for the Beef 88 show. Special arrangements had to be made to seat the large number of people that were expected. Temporary accommodation had also been erected to provide shelter for the 1,400 stud animals that had come to compete at the Beef 88 show. With 28 different breeds to be judged on the one day in the main show arena, 9 different rings were in operation to enable the judging to be completed. The Brahman judging began early on Wednesday morning. The seats were filled to capacity as the judge began his unenviable task of choosing the place getters out of the tremendous number of Brahmins which had come to Beef 88.
Ladies and gentlemen, these top 4 heifers were picked out here, very clean in their silhouette, long heifers.
A large number of Hereford cattle at the Rockhampton Showgrounds was a sight that had not been seen for many years. The Simmentals, along with many other breeds, had travelled a considerable distance to be at Beef 88. The derived breeds such as the Simbras, Bralers, Braffords, Chiangus, Charbres, Brahmazins and Brangus were all present. Beef 88 had attracted quite a few Charolais, along with many other breeds which are not usually seen in numbers at Rockhampton, such as the Chianina, Romagnola, Limousin, Maine-on-Dieu, and the Devon and South Devon. The Santa Gertrudis had come from all over the state to be at Beef 88 in force, and the impressive line of Poll Herefords added to the spectacle of the show.
And the right type of skin and the right type of outlook to suggest that this bull's got the ability and potential to make a very, very good stud sire.
Amongst other breeds shown at Beef 88 were the Sailors, Angus, Droughtmasters, Sariwals, Red Cindies, Murray Greys, Mandalong Specials, Shorthorns, and for the first time, the Belmont Reds. As the day progressed, the champions from the different breeds began to emerge. The Grand Champion Santa Gertrudis female was Robin Lee Nightingale.
Good top line and good coat type, and I'm sure she'll be a good breeder after she's finished the show. The second ever is just a little unlucky to miss out.
Winning the honours for the Grand Champion Santa Gertrudis bull was Yarrawonga Christmas.
You've all heard it, so all I've got to do is say why we put this bull above the other bull.
It's actually the Grand Champion bull is Mrs. Robin Denton, the wife of our Judge George. These are the withdrawals, 1366, 1367.
Meanwhile, in the adjacent ring, the Romagnola Champion bull had been chosen. The award went to Valtellina Scamp. Competition in the Charolais ring resulted in Palgrove Eclipse winning the champion ribbon.
I mentioned earlier I like this bull. He's a very good muscle bull. I'd like to congratulate the exhibitors on the presentation of their cattle today.
Meanwhile, in the Brahman ring, the large crowd were seeing the junior champion and reserve junior champion heifers receiving their awards.
Well, Murray and I might be biased, but I think we end up with 4 beautiful heifers for that, to pick our junior heifer out of in reserve.
The Drought Master judge had a difficult job choosing a winner out of the large bull classes. The eventual champion, Kengoon Tasman.
And I think he's a very fine exhibit, and I'm very happy to have him as my champion, and congratulate the exhibitors on producing such an animal.
Mr. Keith McCamley was the Hereford judge at Beef 88, and from the 90 exhibits presented to him, the champion female was awarded to Kutharabar Pauline. Curly Monte Carlo won the title of champion Hereford bull. One of the new breeds at the Rockhampton Showgrounds was the Sailors. The championship here was won by a bull imported from the United States. At 1 o'clock, the Queensland Minister for Primary Industries, Mr. Neville Harper, officially opened the Beef 88 show. Mr. Harper was flanked by representatives of each breed and performed the opening ceremony before a large crowd. As the afternoon progressed, many breeds finished their judging for the day as the champions were decided.
The cow I went for as the champion, I think she's just tremendous. She's got an adequate frame, the calf on is outstanding.
The champion Brangus bull was Cootiuti Winston. In the adjacent ring, Doonside Winchester had been named as the champion Braford bull.
The bull that I've given it to, as I said before, I think he's got a very good strong head, got great eye pigmentation, He's really got a sire, his outlook from his head.
In the Shorthorn breed, the honours for the champion bull went to Wairama Pepper.
Ladies and gentlemen, here in front of us we have two truly massive bulls. The bull on top to weigh 1166 in paddock clothes. I think this is an absolutely outstanding weight.
The Simbras, although a relatively new breed, had a good showing at Beef 88. Meanwhile, in the Pol Hereford ring, Bonnie Foy Dom had received the Senior Champion Bull Award, and the Reserve Championship went to the Babad. The Tremere Pastoral Company took out the Champion Awards in the Belmont Red classes, and in the Mandalong Special Judging, Mandalong Emerge received the top award. It was a good day in the Chabray ring for the Gobongo stud. They took out both the Champion Bull and the Junior Champion Heifer Awards. The Kianina judge had chosen his champion bull for Beef 88. And the Simmental judge made Dunmore London Times his champion exhibit. It was a long day for both the Brahman spectators and exhibitors. However, the large crowd had remained to see what was one of the greatest displays of Brahman cattle ever presented. A total of 331 Brahman stud cattle had come to compete at Beef 88 from 62 different studs. The senior champion females were decided later in the day.
Senior champion female, sashed by Sally Ellison from the United States of America, is exhibit number 541, G.E. McCamley's Tartrus Miss Indu. Now the reserve senior champion female, which is V. de Guara's Savannah Miss Tux, 735.
Following those awards, the senior champion bull was won by Lancefield Indu Jester, who then went on to win the Grand Championship.
Number 564, the Grand Champion Brahman male of Beef 88, J.R. McCamley's Lancefield Indu Jester.
He's a big, strong, free-moving bull, and that's on top of what I've said prior to that. Mr. McCamley can put him on track and send him back to me any day of the week. Thank you very much.
Another breed to be announcing their champions late in the day were the Murray Greys.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. McLean has made his decision on the Grand Champion Murray Grey female of Beef 88, and the award goes to exhibit 1038, Morsley Hope.
Following judging that afternoon, a large crowd assembled at the Lakes Creek Meatworks to inspect the carcasses in the Ozmeat National Feedback Trial. The Central Queensland Meat Export Company presented a demonstration of different meat cuts showing export destinations. The Beef 88 banquet was held in the Rockhampton Shopping Fair. It was at this function that the winner of the Ozmeat National Feedback Trial was announced.
The winner of the inaugural National Livestock Feedback Trials for grass-fed Japanese competition with 803.5 points is Mort Hudson. There's a magnificent banquet been prepared for you down that corridor there, so if you'd like to start moving down, there are people there who will show you your tables. Thank you very much indeed.
Entertainment later in the night was provided by comedian Brian Doyle.
Hi. Bless you. Good evening. Good evening. They got a new television show now in Brisbane for ex-police commissioners. It's called The Price is Right.
Thursday involved a combination of junior parader and judging competitions, breed demonstrations, displays by CSIRO and the DPI, a bullock team demonstration, and conference sessions at the Pilbeam Theatre. The junior paraders competition started at 9 a.m.
We think the spectacle we had yesterday would be nothing in future years if we haven't got these young fellas to lead the cattle. And we all know that our future stud breeders are right here in front of us.
A large crowd gathered to see the first of the classes for the youngest paraders. It was a difficult job for the judges deciding on the final winners. The next class was considerably larger and saw the same keen competition to arrive at an eventual winner. Meanwhile, in other areas of the showgrounds, breed demonstrations were taking place. A variety of breeds were represented, which gave the public an insight into the different types of cattle.
And where these cattle came from in India, the country of origin, pigment was very important.
And once again, I would say they're economy cattle because they travel further from water.
Meanwhile, back in the junior paraders ring, the winners of the first two classes were competing for the under-16 Champion Paraders Trophy. The award went to Donna Knox. The first of the remaining classes then came before the judges and saw the same keen competition. The last class was for paraders 16 to 22 years of age, and there was very little between the winners and those who were unplaced.
Champion junior parader in the under 22 or 16 to 22 is Terry Connor, and
And these are the boys we're looking for, and to both of them I say congratulations. Job well done.
Breed demonstrations in other parts of the ring were continuing as the junior judging competition began.
We're about to embark on what is a very important part of Beef 88 in my judgment, and that is the opportunity for young people to have the job of assessing cattle. Now, I find, and I think you'll agree, that someone who puts in weight per day of age, you don't need to write a composition in the small area provided. The second rate bull is a very smooth and even bull, and certainly has a very important contribution to make to his breed.
Peter Watts was eventually awarded the trophy for the best junior judge under 16 years of age. Ra Briggs was the winner in the 16 to 22 years competition. At the Pilbeam Theatre, conference sessions had been in progress all morning.
Dr. Hopkins will be addressing the subject that was given to him, researching the future.
Really, I guess the onus is on me to try and create in you a measure of belief in the future, a measure of belief in the potential that the research programs have. And I guess in other words, your belief in your subsequent ability to use the products of research in your own beef cattle enterprise.
Dr. Keith Entwistle addressed the topic of live cattle exports.
I guess what I would like to do this morning is to very briefly deal with the live cattle export trade in general, and then more specifically to talk about the Indonesian situation. Because I guess that for most producers in northern Australia, one of our prime sources of export trade, of course, is Indonesia. But I point out that I don't think we can afford to be too complacent about this trade, for the simple reason that there are a number of other competitors sitting around in the marketplace waiting to see whether they can break in and take some of our trade.
Mr. Rick Farley then followed with a talk on making the hard decision.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. I've got to be nice to the Chairman because he's my boss. The first thing I want to say is it's really good to be home, and I really appreciated the opportunity to be able to meet and talk with so many old friends last night. I thought I'd start off today by telling a story about what it takes, or doesn't take, to make a hard decision. And his wife said, well, she's sitting in the wheelbarrow. So I guess that wasn't a very hard decision at all.
Processing the product was the topic addressed by the next speaker, Mr. Ian Kennedy.
Has been stability. Well, I believe that stability and the need for stability is a myth. We can't have stability. We've got to recognise that we rely for prices wholly on the export market, and our domestic markets will fluctuate in tune with the prices we get on the export market. What we really need is to maximise our income at all times. I think we need to have a mechanism for farmers to manage their financial affairs so that they don't have all their money taken away in tax in a good year, or have to go out and spend money on tax deduction exercises to reduce tax.
Mr. Mike Walters, the final speaker, discussed banking in the rural sector.
For all its faults in the past, the banking system had one most important element: safety. Safety to lenders and to borrowers alike. The system had its own checks and balances. I'm sure you can identify situations where borrowers who went outside the traditional banking area to seek funds for a particular exercise, often the acquisition of extra land, when they couldn't get those funds from the traditional banking system, they went outside, and today generally those people are either not farming or they're facing some sort of difficulty.
At the completion of the morning conference session, the large gathering then moved to CSIRO's Tropical Cattle Research Centre for beef research on parade. It was jointly opened by Dr. Keith Boardman and Dr. Jim Miller.
Here to jointly open the display of CSIRO and DPI beef research. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Boardman. I can state quite categorically then that CSIRO remains firmly convinced that Australia's rural industries will continue to play a major role in the country's economy. Remain firmly committed to assisting the rural industries in that role and the research program. Please welcome Jim Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Boardman mentioned that he opened half the program. He wasn't sure which half he opened, but if CSIRO have done the usual trick, he's probably opened the best half of it and left me for the rest. But, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to now declare the other half of that display open, and I'd like to welcome you all to wander around, or not wander around, I think you've got to go in groups, but and I hope that you enjoy the interaction with our scientists and find the whole process quite beneficial. Thank you.
Your guides will now lead you to the display areas in the animal facility behind me. A horn will signal the commencement of the talks and subsequently signal the end of each of the 14 segments. We would ask you to cooperate by moving promptly from each area.
If there's any in your area and your classes are subject to heavy grazing, it'll just come in. It's like a weed. But
my name's David Hurst. I work for the Department of Industries. I'm involved with the automatic cattle management systems that are developing for Northern Australia. Areas in Northern Australia.
According to changes, quite a range of factors, the weather, prices,
management of herds, management of pastures.
Sometimes these fellas come back from overseas with 6 seeds in a little container.
Examples of CSIRO and Queensland DPI research for the Australian beef industry were on display to all present.
That is where we were, and this is where we are now. I think it's an improvement.
Meanwhile, back at the showgrounds, the Charbray team judging competition was in progress. It involved teams from different schools competing against each other at judging Charbray cattle. A representative from each school group, which consisted of 3 students, gave comments on the cattle before the eventual winner was decided. The trophy for this event was finally won by a group from the Rockhampton Grammar School. Throughout Beef 88, static breed displays were set up at a pavilion at the showgrounds to provide information and promotional items on the different breeds. Various agricultural businesses also had displays in the pavilion. Machinery displays were another feature at the showgrounds during Beef 88, which provided interest to the general public. The Beef 88 replacement heifer competition proved popular and saw quite a few entries from a number of different breeds. The winning exhibitor was the Apis Creek Brahman stud. One of the features at the Rockhampton Showgrounds during Beef 88 was the demonstration by a bullock team. A large crowd gathered for every demonstration and were entertained by a precise display which involved loading logs onto a wagon.
Steady, steady.
Here's the cream and the whipped cream on the topping. Easy. How's about that? What a great job. Yeah, all done by boys.
The air off the brakes.
Friday morning started with breakfast at the Gracemere Sale Yards, the location for the Beef 88 Prime Cattle Show and Sale. The winners in the Prime Cattle Show received their awards before the large gathering.
Class number 8 is the pen of 6 heifers, 300 to 420 kg, pasture crop fed. The judge, Ken McLaughlin and Alan Mills, placed in first the Hughes Grazing Company. I think we've had Peter before. This is getting a bit monotonous, Peter.
The final award presented was for the Grand Champion pen of the show.
Sponsored by the Rockhampton District Sale Yards Board, from Class 1, the winner is Mr. Eric Nobbs. PEC and VK Nobbs from Biloela. Congratulations. Marvellous pen of cattle.
Following the presentations, one of the largest crowds ever seen at Gracemere then participated in the Beef 88 Prime Cattle Auction, which saw a tremendous line of cattle being offered. Meanwhile, at the Rockhampton Showgrounds, the young paraders were busy preparing their steers for the junior lead steer competition. All steers were groomed and exhibited by paraders between 14 and 18 years of age. A variety of breeds were presented to the large crowd. Mr. Morris Binstead was the judge and awarded the champion ribbon to a Poll Hereford led by Donna Knox. The reserve championship was won by Jay Geddes with a Bradford steer. During this judging, a large number of people were enjoying the Beef 88 picnic in the park at Rockhampton's Botanical Gardens. A fashion parade by La Belle Boutique was one of the highlights at this activity. Meanwhile, back at the showgrounds, stud cattle exhibitors were preparing their cattle for the Beef 88 Grand Parade of all stud cattle. The showing was filled to capacity as 28 different breeds went before the large crowd which had gathered to see this spectacle. Following the Grand Parade, the crowd remained to see one of the most important competitions of Beef 88, the Queensland Country Life's Interbreed Grand Championships. The Interbreed Champion Bull was the first judging to take place. All of the Beef 88 stud cattle judges participated by ranking the bulls from 1 to 10. These points were then added up, and the bull with the lowest score was the champion.
Number 2, Cole Shorthorn.
Dunmore London Times, an outstanding Simmental bull, was named the Grand Champion Bull at Beef 88. The champion interbreed female was then judged, and the winner, Robin Lee Nightingale. The last championship to be decided by the judging panel was the interbreed exhibitors group. It was a good day for the Santa Gertrudis breed, for the Yarrawonga stud were the eventual winners. Friday night, the Rockhampton City Mall was the location for a Mardi Gras. Saturday morning saw for the first time an influx of cattle into the city heart for the Avamec Open Lead Steer competition. Sawdust had been placed on the bitumen to provide a suitable surface for the cattle. The first class was for steers with a live weight of 350 kilograms or less. A Murray Grey steer was the eventual winner, with a Chianina Cross in second place and a Hereford receiving the third ribbon. The next class saw a large number of different breeds competing before the large crowd and the keen eye of the judge.
Now that we've got the results, I think it'd be proper to call on our judge, Mr. Don Moore, to make a few comments.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can see it wasn't easy. When you got big steers or heavy steers that are very well made, good conformation, everything else, they've got to take it over the smaller ones. But there is 3 or 4, half a dozen smaller steers out there, beautiful steers, but on this particular occasion, the good big steers beat them.
The winner of this class was a Santa Gertrudis steer, with an Angus in second place and a Chiangus taking out the third ribbon. While the steer judging was continuing, the girl guides were busy in the mall preparing billy tea and damper, which proved very popular. A bootmaker was also busy in the mall, as musicians provided entertainment throughout the morning. A whip-cracking contest was a first for the Rockhampton City Mall. Beef 88 was selling promotional items, as face painting proved popular with the children. Many Rockhampton businesses became involved in Beef 88 by participating in the window decorating competition. Meanwhile, back at the lead steer judging, the winners of the final class had been decided.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the senior class, and of course it's the heaviest, and it's a darn good one. The white fellow has got heaps of meat on him. I believe he'd have enough fat to cover it. Sometimes those type of cattle can let you down when they're high soft.
A Charolais steer received the first ribbon for this final class. The judging of the champion and reserve champion steers then followed. A Santa Gertrudis steer owned by Joyce & Joyce was awarded the championship, and the reserve champion ribbon went to an Angus steer. Following the championship, 2 paintings were auctioned to the public.
Out we go. 225 was money. Thanks very much. $225.
The next item to be auctioned was a bullock yoke, which had been made during Beef 88 at the Rockhampton Showgrounds.
$300. Thank you. $300. $300 there for the bullock yoke. $300. So the last call. $350 is the money. Thanks very much. It goes. Goes to Anthony Coates from Oitsville Station. Thanks very much, Anthony Coates. Goes to Joyce & Joyce.
It was then time for the lead steers to be sold. The champion and reserve champion steers were the first to be auctioned.
$825, you're done. Well done. He goes to White Street. Thanks, Terry.
$675, well done, finished at $675. Well done at $675. Done. Hey, mate, thanks, John.
Meanwhile, more cattle were being unloaded into the streets of the city in preparation for the Beef 88 Street Parade. A range of different exhibits were here to participate in this, the finale to Beef 88. The procession was led by the Bullock team, and the large number of cattle being paraded through the streets of Rockhampton was a highlight and possibly a first for the city.
G'day, everybody.
The large number of Rockhampton businesses, clubs and organisations which participated in the parade ensured it was a fitting conclusion to a great week.
The Rockhampton Ambulance Brigade. They should be it. All in particularly good shape. We're trying to many cattle coming our way.
Once the street parade was over, the only remaining function of Beef 88 would be the Bushwhackers Bash. A final farewell dinner and dance hosted by youth in Beef 88 at the Rockhampton Showgrounds. There were many highlights of Beef 88, which involved activities in a variety of different venues. It was a week that brought the cattle men and women together, the cattle industry to the city, and the city dweller closer to the primary producer. The wide range of competitions during Beef 88 had produced many champions. Beef 88, a week of great spectacle, of entertainment, of communication and of celebration. It was a fitting tribute to 200 years of achievement by the Australian cattle industry.
Beauty, mate.
Between the years of 1788 and 1796, the British first came to settle here in fleets of proud, tall ships. Aboard were red-coat soldiers and convicts, bound and chained. To make a brave beginning on the shores of Botany Bay, they brought with them the goods and stores the colony would need, the implements to clear and build, to plough and plant new seed. But the most important cargo to set foot on those sands were the cattle, to build mighty herds that soon would grace this land.
Farewell to old England forever. Farewell to my uncles as well. Farewell to sing to a liar, sing to a liar, sing to a liar.
100 years saw an industry forged in a bold, pioneering style by drovers and selectors who struggled to tame those wilds. And from Somerset, at the tip of Cape York, to Murrumbidgee Bay, those cattlemen drove their mighty herds to every corner of this nation. They blazed a place in history, blood and sweat and tears. Now, song and verse recount their deeds for all the world to hear.
Adieu to you, Bristol lady, farewell and adieu to the girls of tomorrow, with soul of cattle and happily moving, and come we will see you again before long. And we'll rant and we'll roar like true Queensland rovers, and rant and we'll roar as long as we push, until we return to the Organelle station. Try going through the old Queensland bush. The first Captain May, we will call it the Quad, Cabochurch, Joy, and Carlington's Hut. We will stop at the Stonehouse, but Williamson's paddock, and early next morning we'll cross the Black Bud. And we'll rant and we'll roar like true Queensland rovers, rant and we'll roar as long as we push, until we return to the Organelle station, for it's plain and dry going through the old Queensland bush. And it's on to the Romeo and Yarrow and Queensland, there we will make a fine camp for the day, with a brother and a brother of Landy and Sweetland, and maybe with Butcher, a fat little stray. And we'll rant and we'll roar like true Queensland rovers, we'll rant and we'll roar as long as we push, until we return to the Organelle station, for it's plain and dry going through the old Queensland bush. So fill up your glasses and drink to the lasses, we'll drink this town dry, and it's farewell to all. And when we return to the Organelle station, we hope you'll come by there and pay us a call. And we'll rant and we'll roar like true Queensland rovers, we'll rant and we'll roar as long as we push, until we return to the Organelle station, for it's plain and dry going through the old Queensland bush, for it's plain and dry going through the old Queensland bush. There's a train you'll know well, it's bringing cattle over from the Gulf of
played its role as well. Technology brought new directions, along with fresh blood from import breeds. We strove to reach perfection. And our industry did more than keep pace with the times. With research and innovation, in many fields we led the way for the other producing nations. So now, it's 1988, our bicentennial year. And from every corner of this globe, a wealth of breeds is here. The backbone of this country, the pride of this great land. And as they come before us, let's give them a rousing hand. Our Hereford. Our Brahman. Our Simmental. And all the rest now proudly take their rightful place amongst the world's very best. And let us still toast our pioneers, the drover, the selector, and pray the wheels they travel now are all leading in clover. For as we to the future look, with hopes for what lies there, we'll praise their spirit with our song. Advance, Australia, fair!
Australia is all that